The other day I was working with a group of swimmers and I asked them what the definition of dry land or training outside of the pool meant to them. And they said, well, we want to replicate swimming strokes on land. And then they kind of paused, looked at me and tried to feel me out if that was the right answer. And I want to unpack this a little bit because it's not just the sport of swimming. It could be any sport for that matter. And should you be chasing sport-specific movement in terms of trying to mimic your sport in the weight room, or should you be looking for comparison-specific movement, which is, in my eyes, using similar joint angles, using similar energy systems, maybe replicating a rate of force development and things of that nature. And the biggest thing to understand here is when you chase a sport-specific movement and try to basically mimic your sport in the gym, you're probably not even using it's not the best use of your time, number one. And number two, it's probably not as sport-specific as you would really think. So for example, if you're trying to use resistance bands to mimic a swimming stroke, it's not actually the same resistance that you're using in the water. You're not really getting to that point, and so it's not even the same stroke. So what I mean by that is, if you look at a baseball player or a boxer, sometimes in history they've added a little bit of weight and things like that to a bar or a bat in baseball, or like they've held weights in their hands to punch. But we've taken that a step too far and we've tried to think maybe more is better. But if you actually look at those studies, it's very small weights. It's just enough to stay on that strength and speed curve without going too far. And then if you look at resistance bands trying to swim on land, you're actually not even close to some of the force outputs that you could do in the water when your whole body is involved. So it's a whole different stroke. You're training something completely different than what you're actually doing in the water. Switch your mind to these comparison specific. So what joint angles are you using? If you're in a hip hinge position on the blocks, what does that hip hinge position look like, and how can we maybe tweak an RDL to fit that pattern, for example? Maybe use a certain velocity or speed, and you can mimic that during a squat and things of that nature. And you can find little comparisons, so you can look at a video and say, wow, a kettlebell swing looks a lot like a dolphin kick. And that's great. Find those comparisons, but try to get away from this concept of trying to replicate your sport in the weight room and switch to just saying, hey, this is similar. It has a similar frequency, tendency, capacity, whatever that might be, and compare it to your sport, but don't try to chase bringing the sport into the weight room. Instead, chase physiology and how you can improve your physiology and improve your baseline athleticism so that when you get back to your sport, you're more equipped to handle and go for a new level of performance instead of trying to waste that time in a gym mimicking whatever you're supposed to be doing from your field of play.